everybody, welcome to the Motown India show. We are all talking about electric vehicles. Yeah, now you get to see electric vehicles, you get to see two-wheelers, you get to see electric e-rickshaws and electric three-wheelers of the transport kind. Now you also get to see once in a while an electric bus. But what's missing are electric cars in the passenger vehicles segment. To encourage electric vehicles in the country, the government has come out with what's known as FAME2 policy. FAME, it stands for Faster Adoption and Manufacturing of Electric Vehicles Phase 2. There's going to be an outlay of rupees 10,000 crore, which is going to be spent in 3 years starting April 2019. I hope it's not April 1st and April Fool's Day. This is a huge amount, and FAME1 had an outlay of around 895 crore rupees. So, do we need electric vehicles? Yes, of course we need. India needs it, the whole entire world needs it. The reason being environment. The environment is getting really bad and noxious. That's the air we breathe is getting terrible by the day, and most of the pollution is definitely caused by a lot of factors, including automobiles. Yes, automobiles which run on IC engines, that is the internal combustion engine, they do pollute, whether it's petrol or whether it's diesel. While we are in India moving up the stricter chain of emission norms, and we are going to hit BS6 or Euro 6 or Bharat Stage 6 very soon by 2020 or so, we have to see that we have to really get rid of pollution, and the only way to get rid of pollution completely is through the electric route. That means your vehicle has to be an electric vehicle run on lithium-ion batteries. Now, is that feasible? Is that practical? Let me explain that to you. Now, the government's FAME India 2 policy is all about encouraging electric vehicles, and not primarily electric private cars, but electric two-wheelers and electric three-wheelers in the commercial segment. And definitely they want to also encourage electric buses. That means everything to do with commercial is going to be encouraged big time. That would mean giving incentives to those who manufacture and buy finally, and also to set up charging stations, which is of very paramount importance. Yes, if you don't have a charging port anywhere close to where your car is, it's virtually impossible to charge an electric car. So they're going to have charging stations in and around a 3 by 3 kilometer grid, or perhaps every few kilometers on a highway and in cities and towns all across the country. So that's going to be a huge exercise. Now we need to check the ground realities when it comes to electric cars. Yes, in the passenger vehicle segment, that is in the private sector, we need to see what kind of demand is there for electric cars. Actually, the records are pretty dismal. In these many years that Mahindra has been there in the electric vehicle space, they've just about sold a total around 6,000 electric vehicles in the last several years. Well, the figure is very dismal if I have to talk about Mahindra Electric, which manufactures the E2O and the E-Verito. In the month of February 2019, they produced around 16 vehicles, 16 cars were made, and they were able to sell just about 3. Pretty dismal. And Mahindra Electric is one of the major producers and manufacturers of electric cars. The other being Tata, of course. The Tata Motors does it in the commercial vehicle space, and others are trying it out like Maruti Suzuki. They're all testing their electric vehicles. But while India manages to sell just a handful, maybe less than 10 electric cars in the passenger vehicle segment, the fact is, in abroad, makers of Tesla and Nissan, Leaf and several others, these are able to sell in thousands, more than 50,000 odd cars a single month. So that is the kind of demand which is there in the developed countries. Now let me tell you about the internal combustion engine or the IC engine. Well, all the vehicles, or primarily most of the vehicles which are today sold and bought in this country, whether it's cars or trucks or buses or two-wheelers, motorcycles, scooters, they all run on IC engine. Now the internal combustion engine has got its own advantage when it comes to money. Yes, I'm talking about the government making money. In fact, in the entire auto industry, big part of the auto industry, it's a make in India exercise. Everything is made in India, it's a make in India, and it's sold abroad too. Almost all the vehicles which are exported out of India are of the IC engine nature, and they bring us a lot of revenue. So the government gains through taxes and foreign exchange. So it's a huge make in India dream. Now, if we were to make it an electric vehicle, so what happens? The entire engine, the entire transmission, the exhaust, the entire sequence of parts which are connected, they just vanish overnight. There's no engine, there's no transmission, and there's no exhaust. So what happens? So manufacturers of these products, and they are pretty big in this country, I'm talking about auto component manufacturers who deal with engine parts and transmission parts and exhaust parts. What happens to their factories is shut. There's no production. So if we have to adopt the electric dream, then we have to do away with this. And what comes in its place? Lithium ion. Now, what is lithium ion batteries? What do they do and where do they come from? So lithium ion batteries, which play a very important role for an electric vehicle to move, they constitute as much as 40% of the cost of the vehicle today. So a year or two back, it was around 49%, and reports say that by 2030, this cost in terms of percentage will come down to 19%. So lithium ion doesn't come cheap. So where does it come from and who makes it? So does India make lithium ion batteries? Well, in a way it does. All it does is it assembles them. Lithium ion battery requires cells which are imported from obviously China, Taiwan, South Korea, and several other places. So the handful of manufacturers of lithium ion batteries today do only one thing. They assemble the lithium ion batteries here. So for the rest of our lives, we'll be dependent on countries like China and Korea and Taiwan to buy our cells, because we do not manufacture these cells. These cells are what are required to make the batteries. So what we are doing currently, we are just assembling. And what does it take to actually make a cell? Raw materials. So do we have them? According to a report, contemporary Amperex technology, we call it CATL, in China, is the largest producer of lithium-ion batteries for electric mobility, followed by Panasonic of Japan and BYD of China. Then there are others like Optimum Nano Energy Company Limited of China, South Korea's LG Chem, and Samsung SDI. Now, to make these batteries, we need raw materials. Non-ferrous metals and minerals featuring highly in lithium-ion batteries are lithium, cobalt, nickel, manganese, graphite, copper, and aluminium. The traditional suppliers for lithium and cobalt are South America, Australia, and to some extent Africa. So if you don't control those mines out there, you will never be able to get your raw material to make the lithium ion cell. As simple as that. The biggest name in electric car manufacturing is, of course, Tesla. You guessed it right. This is a company based in the US and it's headed by Elon Musk. Now, Mr. Musk has tweeted several times that he's going to come into India. That was around 10 months back. And then he complained that our policies are not right. Now, he's again tweeted that he might just come this year or next year. Well, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi too had visited the plant. And of course, a lot of government guys had gone there. Everybody was excited that Tesla will be coming into India. But it has yet to come. And we're going to see how Tesla comes, because it's a very expensive car. And since India is a price-sensitive market, you're obviously going to find the demand for Tesla car, if it ever comes, it's going to be very limited because it's going to be expensive. The Tesla Model 3 was the best-selling electric car in the world in 2018, according to data firm JATO Dynamics. JATO says Silicon Valley automakers sold about 138,000 Model 3s, beating out contenders like the flagship EV of state-owned Chinese automaker BAIC, 92,000, and the Nissan Leaf, which is of course a very popular car in Europe, which sold around 85,000 units. This is all in 2018, which are good numbers. In total, Tesla sold more EVs than any other automaker in 2018, the report says. Electric cars come with their own practical problems, especially in a country like India where power supply is very erratic. Now, if you were to buy an electric car and you plug it in and suddenly the lights go off, so what do? You have to live with that. You cannot charge your car. Now, my viewpoint is that we need to walk before we run. Before we adopt the pure electric route, we need to be serious of the hybrid route. Now, what's hybrid? Now, hybrid is a system wherein you use your IC engine more smartly. You mix it up with an element of electric. That means you have an IC engine and you have a bit of lithium-ion batteries. I'll give you an example. The Toyota Camry or the Honda's Accord, these are beautiful hybrid vehicles. We can have such vehicles in smaller cars too. Since it has an IC engine and since it has lithium-ion batteries, the battery gets its power from the lead acid battery and also regenerative braking, and through the electric motor the vehicle runs. So for every 1,000 kilometers the car moves, approximately 500 odd kilometers comes through the electric route. Now, isn't that more sensible than going completely electric? You also have other options like plugged-in hybrid electric vehicles, which means that in an electric mode it runs for maybe around 50-60 kilometers. But the only difference here is you need to go back to your garage and plug it in. But the good part here is even if your battery is completely consumed, you can still use the IC engine to go places. Now, India needs to move through the hybrid route. And before I end the show, let me give you a little bit of information for you to mull over. Remember that once we have electric vehicles in India in large numbers, these need to be charged quite frequently. And that electricity will come from your power sockets, which in turn are supplied from thermal plants. And yes, more than 70% of power generated in India is through thermal plants. And that means they're coal-fired. And that means pollution again. It's a Hobson's choice here, isn't it?